G'day there everyone, Daniel Anderson here. Now in this masterclass we are going to take a look and a deep dive into getting started with Microsoft Teams Shared Channels. A new type of channel that is being introduced into Microsoft Teams that is going to make not only external collaboration more effective, but also there's some great use cases for the use of shared channels internally in your organization as well. So we're going to take a look at a couple of different examples. Now, for those of you who don't know me, as I said, my name is Daniel Anderson. I am a Microsoft MVP in the Office Applications and Services and also founder of the Loop token. Now, every day I get to work in an industry with people and businesses where I can make a difference in the way everyday work is experienced. Now, I believe in inspiring businesses and individuals to reevaluate how they operate, communicate, collaborate, and function. I also believe in industry disruption, and I think that we've got a really big opportunity and platform in Microsoft 365 to be able to achieve that. Now, on to Microsoft Teams Shared Channels. Now, why are we using and why is Microsoft Teams Shared Channels going to make a really big difference in the way that you collaborate? Well, we're going to be able to create collaboration spaces with people inside and outside of your organization. And the people that are outside of your organization can participate in these channels without switching organizations in Teams. Now, we will take a look at an example of that, but now when we're inviting guests into our team, then they do need to change tenants or switch orgs in the Teams client. So with Microsoft Teams Shared Channels, this channel is available without having to switch organizations, which is an amazing improvement into the user experience. Now, a couple of points here are that guests or Azure Active Directory guest accounts can't be added to shared channels, but you can invite people outside of your organization using this feature or functionality called Azure AD B2B Connect. Now, we're going to have a look at where that is configured because there's a few little configuration options that we do need to set up prior to making shared channels available. And that is the cross-tenant access settings in Azure AD. So we will step through and take a look at that as well. Now, a few other points here. Each organization that we do want to share channels with must also complete that configuration. All right, so it's not just in your tenant; it is in the other tenants as well that this needs to be configured. Only owners and members of shared channels can access them. Now, we've already covered a little bit on why we would want to use these, but a typical use case is to collaborate with a group of people who are all members of different teams. So if we think of this as a good internal use case, if we've got members of different teams, so engineering, sales, support, finance, lots of other different teams in our organization, a great way to be able to all collaborate together without having to form a new team is to create a shared channel, and that shared channel will appear in every individual team in that case there. Now, shared channels are also linked to a parent team, and they can't be moved to a different team, and they also can't be converted to standard channels and also the other way round. Now, as I said before we can get into using Teams Shared Channels, what we need to do is configure some things in the back end. So in the Azure portal, in the Azure AD part of Azure, we need to configure our Azure B2B Connect. Now, it can be configured for each organization that you want to collaborate with, but we can also enable shared channels with all external organizations as well. And once this is enabled, team owners can invite people from other organizations. Any custom line of business application will be available in these shared channels, and organization application lists will also be available in the shared channels, and the external participants can access them as well. Now, inviting people in other orgs to participate in shared channels, we need to set up this Azure B2B Connect. So the steps that are involved in that are highlighted on the screen here. So we need to jump into the Azure Active Directory, which we will now take a look at, and we will step through where these settings are. So let me just bring up this Azure AD portal here, and we are in the Azure Active Directory component. So on the left-hand side here, we have got external identities. And again, in this navigation, we've got cross-tenant access settings. Now, in this cross-tenant access settings, we do have the ability here to add individual organizations as well, but you can see this note, organization settings are cross-tenant access settings you've configured for specific Azure AD organizations. Now, any Azure Active Directory organization that's not listed here will use the default settings. All right, so let's jump into default settings here. And let's take a look at where we configure these. So you can see here, we've got inbound and outbound access settings. Now, the one we're going to step through first is the inbound defaults. So this is where we're allowing people to invite other organizations to participate in shared channels. So if I edit these inbound settings and we go to the B2B Direct Connect tab, you can see on this tab here, we've got external users and groups. Now this tenant is already configured to allow access, and it applies to all external users and groups. Then we flip over to the applications section here. And again, the access status is to allow access, and it applies to all applications. But we could, if we wanted to, hit select applications, and then we could add specific Microsoft applications if we needed to as well. But let's just leave it at all applications. All right, so that's the inbound settings, and that's the default settings that we were talking about there. Now, if we jump back to organizational settings, you could add another organization or a specific organization here and configure organization-specific settings just for that organization. So when I click Add Organization here, we can add a tenant ID or a domain name, and that will then go and find that tenant, and then we can configure specific settings or organizational specific settings for that tenant. Now, the other option that we need to consider here too is to allow users in your organization to participate in shared channels in other organizations. Okay, so again, in the default settings tab here, we have the outbound access settings. So if I edit outbound, the default settings here, again, when we go to B2B Direct Connect, we've got users and groups, and we've got external applications. So under users and groups, the access status in this tenant is set to allow access, and this applies to all Contoso users, but we could restrict that. So we could add users and groups that this applies to. So if we only want to allow certain groups of people or certain users to be able to participate in shared channels outside of our organizations, then we can, this is how we could restrict that. Again, if we jump over to external applications, we've got the same settings as before. The access status is to allow access, and this applies to all external applications. So the Azure, it's fairly straightforward to set up the Azure B2B Direct Connect settings, but that needs to be set before we can actually either participate in or actually invite people to our shared channels. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing we also need to check and make sure that we have in play is a Teams policy and a Channels Teams policy here that actually allows people to create shared channels. All right. Now, this is enabled by default, and we can check that in the Teams Admin Center. So under the Teams Policies section, that is where these settings are located. You can see in that screenshot that this is at the global level. All right, but we could create a new Teams policy. So if I jump into the admin center here, so what we might do, let's just jump into the Teams admin center, and we'll take a look at the Teams policies. So we'll jump into admin, and we can then jump into the Teams admin center as well. Wait for that to load. We'll show all. Let's jump into Teams, and we will wait for this blade to load here. And what a lot of organizations might do is, rather than have this at a global policy level, we could create an individual policy here and apply that to certain groups. So we can see here, here's the org-wide default, and you can see that this is already set and everything is enabled. But we could create and add a new policy and say Teams Shared Channels. We could leave all these on and let's apply that. Now, what that would mean is that we could then turn that off at a global level and just apply that Teams Shared Channels policy to certain individuals or certain groups. Okay, so just a way that we can control who can and can't actually create these shared channels. Okay, moving on. We have a few more little points to make before we jump into some demos. So a few things around deletion and archiving. So when a channel or a shared channel is deleted, it can be restored within 30 days. And when it is restored, all the memberships will be restored along with the channel. Now, when an entire team is deleted, the shared channels are obviously deleted as well. And once the team is restored, the channels will also be restored as well. Now, when a team is archived, the individual sharing will remain, but the sharing with teams other than the parent team will be removed. And we'll touch on that, and that'll make a little bit more sense when we go through individual sharing versus team sharing as well. Okay. Now, there is this concept or this topic around SharePoint and file access as well. So as we know, there is a SharePoint site that backs every team. That's where our files are stored. Every channel gets its own folder in the default document library. Now, when we talk about shared channels, and this is fairly similar, well, is similar to private channels, each shared channel has its own site. It ensures that the access to the shared channel files is restricted, and it can be enhanced and can be used as a fully fledged SharePoint site through the site admin. Now, files, folders, and the OneNote notebooks also, now these can be shared outside of the channel as well using the standard sharing capabilities of SharePoint. So if we have an individual file, even though that's in a shared channel, we can still share that individually with other people, and they will still just have access to that file, not the entire channel. Okay. So there we have it. A little bit of a background, a little bit of context there. So let's now jump into a demo of a couple of different scenarios, how we go about setting things up, and see what that user experience is like. So let's jump back into this tenant here. We're in Contoso. I'm logged in as Megan here. All right. So we've got a few different teams set up, and the first example we are going to have a look at is the external collaboration side of things. All right. So we've got this digital initiative public relations team. It's only got a single channel. It's a general channel. Now, traditionally, we would have had to invite a user as a guest into that team, and they would have then access to the entire team. But the user experience on the other end means that that user would have to switch organizations. So up in the top right-hand corner, you can see here that Megan is a member of another organization's team, and that's my tenant's team. All right, so for Megan to access that the team that she's been added as a guest in, we'd need to change tenants. All right, so if I now flick over to this tenant, you can see we're now leaving the Contoso tenant and entering into this external tenant now, and now Megan is able to engage and chat and communicate in that tenant. But to get back to Contoso, we need to switch organizations, and then that will take me back to my Contoso tenant. Now, this is where shared channels comes in really, really handy from a user experience side. So let's now create a shared channel. So what we're going to do here under Digital Initiative Public Relations team, we're going to add a channel. You'll see that in addition to the standard channels and the private channels, we now have this option called Shared Channels. So we can give the channel a name like we ordinarily would. Let's just be creative and say Shared Channel. You can see also that we've got an option here where we can share this channel with everyone on the Digital Initiative Public Relations team, or we can restrict access to this. So there might be a subset of users that are part of this overall team that we only want to allow in this channel. All right. But for now, and for this example, we're just going to leave that and share this channel with everyone in the team. So we can now go ahead and create that channel. Now, the next step we're going to do is we're going to add a user, an external user. All right, so what we can do here, and again, remembering that this external tenant needs to have those configuration options to allow their people to participate in shared channels. So let's type in an email address of an external user. So we've got Adele there, and we can add this person into this shared channel. So let's now share this channel, and Adele will come in as a member of this channel. So that's now done. You can see that the channel has a little different logo so that it indicates that it is a shared channel. And now what we can do is, let me just jump back into, and I'll drag Adele's screen across here. So you can see I'm logged in as Adele in this external tenant, and I've got an activity feed item in here, and you can see that this activity shows me that Megan has shared a channel with me. Okay, so what we can do here also is, when I jump into Teams, you'll see that I've got a new team that's added in here. You see I've got some, I just need, the Contoso org needs my permission to give access to all the features. We can review the permissions here, and then we can also accept those. Okay, so let's just accept these. We are now good to go. So Adele doesn't need to switch tenants here or switch organizations like we saw before, but this Digital Initiative Public Relations team, the external team, actually appears alongside now my internal teams, or Adele's internal teams. And I've got access to this shared channel and only this shared channel. So I can have a new conversation here, and we can enter that conversation. Okay, and you can see that it's shared with members in other orgs. Okay, now if I jump over back to Megan's environment here, you can see that there's the conversation that Adele has started. All right, I can interact with it. Great to have you here. We can do everything that we do like we would in a normal channel, in a team. Okay, and you can see one more time, if I drag Adele's Teams UI across here, you can see that I've got everything coming through. All right. So from an external side of things, it's a great way for the external user to now collaborate and communicate with an external party without having to change organizations in Microsoft Teams. The next use case we're going to take a look at, and is one that hasn't really been, I guess, highly talked about or publicized that much. It's more around the external collaboration that shared channels comes up in conversations, but this is more around internal communication as well, and how shared channels can increase and improve internal communication. So in a lot of organizations, we have a setup like this, where we've got a sales and marketing or some global functional team, and then we might have smaller functional groups or teams that are subsets of that overall team. And you can see here, this is a simple use case where we've got a sales and marketing team, and that's a global team. Now, not everybody in sales and marketing might be a member of that team. There's overhead in terms of management and adding people to the team and all of that sort of stuff. The other thing is that people might just miss communication that's happening in that sales and marketing team. We're using our functional group teams. So you can see here, we've got US sales, we've got sales east, we've got sales west. Now, if I'm a member of sales east or sales west, then I'm tending to be working in that team. And I might not see all the time communication or things that are happening in the overall and the global sales and marketing team, not to mention all the other teams that I might be a member of. So this is where shared channels can come into play really, really well internally, from an internal comms perspective too. So I'm logged in as Megan. Let's now add a channel in sales and marketing, and let's call this sales and marketing updates. So what we want to do is use this channel to update everybody across all of sales and marketing in any of the smaller functional teams. We want to use this channel to update everybody. But rather than having this sit in that sales and marketing global team, we want to be able to add this to those individual teams. So we'll create a shared channel. We'll just leave this and we'll share this with everybody on this parent team, and let's create that. All right. So again, that's adding an additional channel to the sales and marketing team, and it's creating a shared one. All right. So we can see there that that has now been created. Let's just skip this option for now, but it hasn't appeared and it's not part of any of these other channels. Okay, so if we look at these other functional areas, let's jump into Sales East. Let's manage the team. And you can see that Alex is an owner of this team. And I think Alex is also an owner of Sales West, and he is. Okay, let's have a look at US sales, and you can see that Megan and Isaiah are owners of that. So let's say we want to now share this shared channel with other teams, or with individual people. So let's choose with a team. So what we can do here is, when I select with a team, we need to type the name or the email address of the owner of that team. So in my case, I'm going to choose, and I'm going to select Alex. So let's choose Alex, and I want to send an invite to him for this shared channel. So let's now send that across, and we will bring Alex's access over here, and you can see here, logged in as Alex. I've just got a little notification. Megan's invited my team to a shared channel. All right, so let's click on this activity, and now what we've got is a couple of invites. So we need to, as a team owner, I need to accept this invite. Okay, so let's, it'll be this one here. Let's accept this invitation. And now we can pick a team to add this sales and marketing update channel to. Okay, and you'll also notice that when the channel owner approves it, we'll see it in the team automatically. So let's choose Sales East, and we'll click Done. All right, so that's now accepting that invite. But there's still one thing to do. So let's jump back into Megan and jump into our activity, and we can notice here that Alex has accepted the invite, and I need to now, well, Megan now needs to approve that. So let's approve that. All right. So now automatically, if I bring Alex back over, what we'll see under Teams, under East, we can now see that we've got the shared channel sales and marketing update in there. But you'll also notice that Alex is not a member of the global sales and marketing updates team. All right, so when I jump into here, I don't see anything else. I've got the files tab. I've got the ability to communicate with everybody else. And we can start a conversation here. And now, what we can now do is have a central channel and a central location that's managed here at the sales and marketing team level, where we can now send out updates or we can communicate with everybody, and that shared channel can be added to all those other teams that we need to communicate with. So if I'm part of Sales East, I don't need to worry about going to sales and marketing at the global level anymore. I can just use the Sales East team, and I've got the ability to communicate and collaborate inside there as well. Now, a couple of other things that we'll take a look at, and that's from a files perspective. So I mentioned before that every shared channel has its own SharePoint site. So if I jump into the Files tab here, we'll notice, same as all the other channels, we've got this Files interface, but we can also open this up in SharePoint. Okay, so if I open this up in SharePoint, you can see that we're in a brand new SharePoint site that's named as the channel name, and we've got a document library here. All right, so not a folder inside of the document library as other channels are in a normal team, but this is its own SharePoint site. We've also got links to the parent team. So if I want to, remembering that this shared channel is part of the sales and marketing team, and that's what's called the parent team. So if I click on parent team, what actually happens here is that I'm taken to that sales and marketing team. And here's the team site. Now, when I jump into documents, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting as well. So you can see here that normal document library, but we can see that we've got this filtered, and this is rolling out now as of this recording. It may not be in your tenant right now, but it is coming. Is that we've got this option now to see and view what folders in this document library are part of Microsoft Teams channels. And you can see that I've got 3 here. So I've got general, I've got monthly reports, and now I've also got this shared channel, well, what looks like a folder, but in actual fact, it's an entire site. So it's a great way to differentiate between what's part of Teams and what's just part of the general document library or the site library. Now, what's interesting here is that I can click this folder, but I'm not taken inside of a folder. I'm just taken back to the sales and marketing share or the document library for that shared channel. All right, so just a little bit of a user experience enhancement there if we are using SharePoint as a means of navigating and finding our files. It's just a great way and a nice, easier way to navigate our way between the shared channel and also the parent team as well. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to take a look at is, let's go back to this externally shared channel. Now, I'm just going to also bring across Adele's team here. And what we're going to take a look at now is, you can see on the left here, we've got the shared channel. I'm logged in as Megan, and I've got Adele here in this window. Now, let's say that we want to remove access to an external user. So Adele is sitting here, but I want to remove access for Adele. So what we might just do here, let's just minimize this a little bit as well. Let's just fit this onto this screen so that we can see this live and see what happens. All right, so we've got Megan on the left, we've got Adele on the right. So here's the externally shared channel, and we can manage this channel. So let's jump into manage channel. We can see the members, and we can see that there's Adele right there. Now let's say we want to remove Adele's access. Okay, all we need to do as a site owner here, as a channel owner, is we can just hit the cross. Now what's going to happen here is you'll see that that team and that channel has just automatically disappeared from the Teams list that Adele has in her Teams client. All right, so as simple as that and dynamically as that, as soon as any member is removed from that shared channel, that access is also removed, and it gets removed from that person's Teams interface as well, or that Teams list. So it's a great, nice, easy, clean way to remove access to that team and the conversations and the files as well. Okay. So there we have it. That's all we're going to cover in this, I'll call it a masterclass anyway, or workshop. So that's a nice, quick, deep dive into Microsoft Teams Shared Channels. It is a great way to enhance not only the external communication and collaboration with people, but also there are plenty of use cases from an internal perspective as well, how shared channels can be used in many different ways to be able to enhance the communication and collaboration internally amongst your teams as well. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope that brought you some value. Now, once again, if you do want to get in contact with me, there are all of my links that you can hit me up on or find me. Now, I will also mention that anybody that has got to the end of this and is watching this right now, I have launched my own creator token called Loop. Now, I am also giving away free tokens. So for the launch of this, so if you have a Solana wallet already, you can simply go to that URL there. It's just a Microsoft form, or you can scan the QR code, fill out that form, pop in your public Solana wallet address, and I will send you a free Loop token. If you don't have a Solana wallet already set up, I have created a nice little video for you available on YouTube, and literally it will take you 3 minutes to set up a Solana wallet. Then you can come back and you can fill out that form, pop the public wallet address in, and I will send you some free Loop tokens. So I hope that brought you some value today, and I will see you in the next episode.